welcome to WRPB Studios and WRPB. My name is Wayne, and I've been hosting shows for, 30 years, and I've interviewed tons and tons of people, and I always try to say, use a professional. If you don't use a professional, it's probably going to cost you 5 times more in money and 10 times more in frustration and aggravation. Well, I decided that I'm going to talk about a topic that I know very little about and get some general idea of how this industry works and maybe what I can do to make my wealth better. With me is Matt Wisehaupt, and you are a wealth management advisor?
Yes, a wealth advisor.
Wealth advisor. Okay.
Thank you for having me on.
What's the name of the company?
We are a Hightower team, Hightower Advisors. Our local team is Wisehaupt Bray Asset Management.
Okay, so I have to ask you this. How long are you doing this first?
A little over 5 years, 5.5 more or less.
Okay, and why did you get into it?
So for me, it's a family business. My father started in the industry in the 1980s, and he was with Merrill for a large portion of his career, and then in 2008 he left to help found Hightower as one of the original partners. I joined right out of grad school, and I just really love being able to help people. You make a really profound difference on people's lives with good planning and good execution.
Okay, so I have to say this because you didn't say it, and I'm going to say it for you. So I asked you how long you've been in the industry. You said 5 years.
Yes.
But you've been around the industry probably many, many more.
I help move boxes from Merrill Lynch to Hightower when they change companies.
Right, okay. So one of the questions I always ask is, in order to be successful in any entrepreneurship or any business, one of the things that helps greatly is family support.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a lot of times that people don't get family support. I'm sure you had family support.
Yes, I certainly did. It's really been a blessing. It's a really challenging industry to break into if you don't have at least some sort of connection into it, someone to help you along, because it's a challenging area to navigate, very highly regulated, and you have to source all your own prospects, all your own clients.
And I would think that it's an industry that's constantly changing.
Yes.
Okay, so dealing with somebody who's not on top of the game is sometimes going to be a little tricky because me, as an outsider, doesn't really know the industry. Okay,
Yes.
So I would kind of give up that stuff to a wealth advisor like you. Okay,
Yes.
I would say that the changing times keep you on your toes.
Yes, certainly. The relatively inflationary environment, very different from anything I've seen in my career until the 2020, or until very recently, maybe a year ago. Rates were very, very low and had been my entire career. So this is a very different financial environment than I previously had experience with. And combining that with a lot of the legal changes, we've seen multiple Secure Acts pass and the Inflation Reduction Act pass, and that has had some regulatory changes in the industry.
Well, I don't know the industry. That's why I brought you on. So I'm just thinking, like in my industry, which is tech. If one thing changes, it changes 50 things, not just that one thing.
Right.
Okay, so when interest rates change, it just doesn't change that one thing for you, right?
Exactly.
It changes other parts too, I would think.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say it always directly changes a bunch of things. So my background, my education was in industrial engineering and economics. So it's all about systems and optimization. And the really big changes you see from the legislation is if it makes something slightly more favorable or slightly less favorable, it changes how valuable it is relatively as a tool. Which means, if that's a little bit worse, well, I'm actually not going to allocate anything to that strategy. I'm going to move to a different strategy on the far extreme end. Usually it's a balancing game of tax-advantaged places to put your money versus what the current macro environment is doing, what industries the government are trying to promote, help for social or environmental reasons.
I've been in real estate 35 years. I've done commercial real estate and in the real estate industry. And I kind of see a correlation where when interest rates are high, prices come down a little bit.
Right.
But there's always those weird markets that change things
Mm-hmm.
because recently interest rates went through the roof, but prices didn't come down.
Right.
So you just really, there's no definitive answers in the financial market at
Mhm.
all. I mean, I don't know that anybody can give you any definites about anything. You can only use the knowledge that you have to
Right.
make the best decisions you
Exactly.
can make. And not taking away from you, but anybody who comes to you not only has your experience, but has the experience of a company that's been around a long time
Yes.
and knows the business.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, well, I know, and I hate to say this, people know me for a long time. My second wife got a settlement from a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
Almost $200,000. And in 2 years, it was gone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And that was because we didn't seek financial advice.
Yeah, I see that so often. People come into a big financial windfall, be it inheritance, be it a settlement from some sort of lawsuit.
Hopefully, it's going to be lottery.
Hopefully, the lottery.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting. My day will come, and then I'll be able to call somebody. Go ahead.
Sorry, where was I? Windfall. And,
Right.
So many people don't have a concept of how much they can spend and still have that money appreciate. Because there is a number you can come to with looking at your spending, looking at what you have, and looking at where you want it to be in the future, where you can spend a certain amount on a yearly, monthly, however time frame you want to base it, and still have what you want at the end. You just have to plan for that. You have to know where you want to get and have a roadmap to get there.
And you guys, besides being put up against the wall with not knowing what interest rates are going to do, per se, you also don't know how long a person's going to live.
Right.
When that was no big deal when I was 20 and 30. I didn't think of those things. And that's when you should start thinking those things.
Yes.
So now that I'm older, I don't know how long I'm going to live. So I don't know how much I need to get by moving forward with that. And how I can take what I have and make sure it lasts me as long as possible.
Yeah. So one of the things we use, we call it our income for life model. And what we do is we plug in, we can work from either direction with the monthly income, the expenses they need to cover, or with the amount of money they have and work back down to how much they can afford to spend. We can work either direction and really plug it in and find out how much can they afford on a certain income. Life expectancy plays a factor, naturally. We like to be very conservative in our estimates, expect them to live a long time.
God willing.
Because no one wants to run out of money. That's probably the worst thing that can happen in retirement.
The worst thing that can happen is run out of life. Then run out of money. Run out of life is the worst thing that can happen.
Oh, yes, that's a good point.
So, I try to get it. All right, so one thing with all the financial companies I've spoken to in the past, over the years, I think that people really need to know a couple of things. And one thing I think they need to know is your financial future starts today.
Yes.
Okay? Don't wait.
Mm-hmm.
It's the worst thing that you could ever do. And the next thing that most people think about is, well, you know what? I only got $5,000 in the bank. I only got $8,000 in the bank. I got $20,000. They think that the amount that they have in the bank stops, because they don't, in their mind, they don't have enough, stops them from beginning their journey to financial success. Does it really matter how much someone has in a bank that determines when they should start? Or should they just start no matter what they got and work from there?
So I've always liked the saying, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Okay.
So the sooner you start, the better, even if it's a small amount. I'm sure everyone watching has heard the idea of compounding interest.
Right.
Even if you start with a small sum, in 20 years it grows and grows and grows. There are market downturns. It doesn't grow linearly, unfortunately for us. It has dips and better periods, but it does grow over the long term.
Like real estate, it's cyclical.
Yes.
But what I try to explain to people, what I've learned, is that a lot of people are self-conscious because they don't have $500,000. And they think they need $500,000 to start their financial future. And that's not the case. Okay?
Yes.
And again, like I said, if you started 20 years ago with $200, you would be in better shape than you are today, okay, with $10,000.
Very likely. I haven't run the numbers on that. But
No. Okay, I wouldn't put you against that with numbers. This came from someone who knows nothing. But just generally, I know that if you started with X dollars, it's kind of like back in my day, we would buy savings bonds. Okay, and they were like 20-year savings bonds and whatever. And it was, well, we bought you a $25 savings bond, and it reaches this point in 10 years, whatever the number was. But now we found some that are like 40 years old. Okay? I have one that's 64 years old.
Oh, wow.
It was given to me on my second birthday or my first birthday. Yes, I'm 66. And it's $25. It was $25. It's got greater value today.
I would imagine.
$5. Right, and it was something. It was such a small amount, even back then.
Well, back in the 60s, probably had a much higher interest rate on a savings bond, too.
In the 50s.
Sorry,
yes, it did. But the thing is, it wasn't a lot of money 10 years after. Didn't need the $25 or whatever it was. And it just kind of get put in a box somewhere and not thought about. And today it was like, oh my God, there's a vacation here. I see at least a vacation here on that $25.
Yes.
So it's really kind of cool to say, I got to start today, even if it's a little amount. You know, some of the things that we don't think of, like you said, starting 20 years ago, I had comic books and baseball cards from back when I was a kid. And what did we do with them? We threw them out. What would they be worth today? Okay?
Pretty good deal, I imagine.
I bought my first car in 74. And it was a 66 Mustang.
Okay.
Spent $700. And of course, I ended up selling it for peanuts. What would it be worth today? Thousands. So the thing is that starting with $5 today is smarter than waiting 20 years to start with more money, in my opinion. Plus,
you get to the more money part faster if you start with today.
Right, and every journey begins with a first step.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's hard to make the first step. So I think what I need to clarify is that to people, because I'm one of them, is that you can't be, I hate to say it this way, embarrassed that you don't have that $500,000 or $200,000 or $5 million. You're not Mr. A or Mr. B. You might be Mr. C. But you know what? You'll never reach any of those higher numbers unless you begin. And that's how I always thought about it. Okay, we're getting to the top of our time. How do people find you? You have a phone number?
Yes, I believe you have it or might be putting it on the screen. You can reach me at 561-227-5080.
And you have a website?
Yes, it's www.wbam.us.
It's pretty easy. WBM, okay.
That's the initials for our team, Wisehaupt Bray Asset Management.
Okay.
We like to call it WBAM.
Okay. But, you know, anybody in the tech industry knows the shorter the domain name, the easier it is to remember.
Yeah, and you have the IT part. When the internal domains change, we've got one that just always redirects to the right spot. So that's always going to be the correct URL.
You know, it's funny because when I started, I was Radio Palm Beach 30 years ago. And when I got involved with bigger companies like Live Nation, the girl that believed in us and was working with us, her boss came to her and said, where are they on the dial? And it wasn't ever on the dial. Well, I wasn't on the dial, but after that, where were they on the dial and what's their call letters? Well, she didn't know what to do, so she made us WRPB.
Okay.
Anything east of the Mississippi is a W, anything west is a K.
Okay.
Okay, so we got WRPB and we kept it. I had workers come. I had one worker that I hired.
Mm-hmm.
His first day, he said, "You need to change the name of your company." I'm like, "No, this is what it is," and it is a little tricky to say, and we have to keep it up there so when people,
Yeah.
they say, "Oh, okay," but I think it's so important that people use a professional because you will jump over some of the hurdles you'll have if you try to do it yourself. And it doesn't have the value if you do it yourself. DIY is for people who have extra time,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and not a care in the world. I can't tell you, I think everybody's gone through this where either our spouse or someone tells us, hey, you need to move that over to there, and you go, no brainer. Well, as soon as you say it's an easy job, it takes
Mm-hmm.
forever. It takes days. Okay, what's the name of the company again?
Hightower, Wisehaupt Bray Asset Management,
And where are you located?
Palm Beach Gardens, right by the mall.
Everybody, check them out. Use a professional. It's so, so important. Matt, thank you
Yeah.
for coming in.
Thank you again, Wayne.
Everybody will be right back.